Hey there, welcome back to True North Reviews. My name is Ryan, and today we're doing a special brand new installment of Graded. This is a video series where I rank a band or artist's albums from worst to best while giving a letter grade associated with each of them, kind of like at school. A special note on how I'll be doing the grading: everything is going to be relative to the band I discuss in the individual video. In other words, the albums that are on each list will be compared to one another, and my opinions will be based on the artist's trajectory or evolution over time. So yeah, you can expect some discussion of my favorite songs, how crucial each album has played into the band's discography, and the stylistic progression or sometimes degression that may have occurred between each project. For the very first episode of this brand new video series, I am so excited to be talking about the Black Keys. They released their newest album, Let's Rock, their 9th in their discography, and I figured, since I've been making so many videos about them this year, why not just make a video where I talk about all of their albums and I just rank them. Now, before jumping into today's video, I'd appreciate you taking a moment to subscribe to the channel for any exciting new album reviews that will be on their way. And if you guys do enjoy this new segment of Graded, be sure to drop a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think of this. I know I'm super happy to be bringing a new video series to the channel. All of these videos, they won't be uploaded as frequently as the album reviews or Hot and Cold, but I'm just super happy. It will be a massive undertaking for some discographies, and yeah, hey, any support for the channel, I appreciate it. It goes a long way. And for all of those people that have been along for this journey so far, thank you very much. Now, without further ado, here is the countdown for the Black Keys albums. First off, at number 9, we have Magic Potion. This is the Black Keys' fourth full-length studio project back from 2006, and it's an interesting album in the way that I would say this is the only one I would give a failing grade to, yes, an F. And it really just comes down to the fact that I think that this is Thick Freakness Part 2 with many more underwhelming songs, with a bit of a regression when it comes to the stripped-back rock jams. On Magic Potion, there is notably a smaller presence of bass on here. It's really the only Black Keys album that I feel like I can never really listen to all the way throughout when I sit down. Now, with that being said, there still are a couple highlights on this project. One of my favorite songs is Just Got to Be. This song sounds like a regression to the Jimi Hendrix style song that would have been tried a plethora of times on their first 2 albums. However, this time I feel like it's done with perfection. I think the Black Keys, they take it on straight with the drums and guitar. It's this pure duo performance that kind of establishes this synergy between Dan and Pat's performances. For the other highlight, I gotta emphasize the track Strange Desire. And now for the other kind of underwhelming tracks on here, Modern Times, I'm not really in love with this one. As well as the song The Way I Feel When I'm With You. This one just feels like the vocals are taking the back seat. They are mixed much quieter than they need to be. And even with Dan sounding a bit more adventurous when it comes to his falsettos, it certainly feels like he isn't as confident as what he would go on to do with the album Brothers, or what he even did before Magic Potion with Rubber Factory. Now, moving on to number 8, we have The Big Come Up. This is the debut album from the Black Keys. This is what I would define as the humbled garage rock origin. There are lots of fuzzy and loud guitars on here, lots of lo-fi production, a more derivative sound of artists like Jimi Hendrix, ZZ Top, some southern boogie shuffles too. And let me tell you, this album is a long way from what we would know with their arena rock friendly sound that they would go on to sell out in the early 2010s. This album overall, I will say that it is derivative. It's not really the greatest debut. I would give it a D. Some of my favorite tracks on here, one includes Busted. This one is a memorable way you want to open up your discography. Do the Rump, we get this 12-bar blues on here. There's other tracks on here. We get a Beatles cover, She Said, She Said. We get some fuzzed out vocals on that one with a bit more of this lower register being chimed in. I mean, it makes sense. Dan can't really hit the same kind of vocal range that John Lennon or Paul McCartney could. But for the most part, this record, you know that it's got lo-fi production. It has a very low budget when it comes to the audio quality. After all, it was recorded in the basement of drummer Patrick Carney, and yeah, a lot of the drums on here are just very thinly produced. Some of the lowest quality of recording that I've really heard. So when you compare this album to Brothers, or what I will eventually get to with the other graded albums on here, you'll know that the Black Keys have come a long way. Now at number 7, we have Thick Freakness. This is the second studio album from the Black Keys. It was released back in 2003, and I would describe this album as being important for the discography, but not something that is essential. It's certainly laying down the foundation for what we hear on their latest record, Let's Rock, and it has slightly better production value overall. I would say the title track is one of my favorites. Have Love Will Travel has all of the single power to this album. Another track on here entitled Hard Row, the guitar tones and strumming styles are very similar to the ones used on Let's Rock. There are lots of tape delays, wah-wahs, and fuzz tones on the guitar solo, very scuzzy. And I feel like the song Set You Free is an instrumental highlight for Patrick playing on the toms. He's exploring the drum kit a bit more, he's adding in very lo-fi cymbal crashes, and yeah, at least he's like opening up his drumming, his style. Overall, I'm feeling a D+ on this record. I just feel like some of the influences of Jimi Hendrix are still looming a bit heavy, but we know that there are some glimmers of hope that the Black Keys established themselves as their own kind of artist. They do fool around with some expanded form, we get some different guitar tones, and we know that Dan will go on to kind of hone his own craft with his vocals. Now moving on to number 6, we have Turn Blue. This is the 8th album from the Black Keys discography. This was released back in 2014. This one is what I would describe as the psychedelic album, something that is very sad. It's also an album that shows the exhaustion from all the touring and songwriting from Dan and Pat. One that is very personal, something that is following up a divorce from both artists, I believe. And moreover, I feel like the bass on here is ramped up to 11. I've never heard such loud, rattling bass on a Black Keys record before. I'm gonna give this record a C. It's not quite living up to standards of what I would expect from a Black Keys record, but there are, again, lots of highlights. This album includes Weight of Love, which is Dan Auerbach's 6-minute and 50-second odyssey. Dan has 3 guitar solos on here that just progressively grow with propensity. He stole the spotlight and never looked back. His guitar playing on this song is simply masterful. The track In Time is another one of my favorites on here. It's maxed out for its spacious arrangement, and it's absolutely enthralling, and it's just great to be heard in an arena, which I'm only predicting at this point since I haven't seen them live yet. The song Fever plays like Lonely Boy Part 2. Yes, the predecessor is a stronger rock song, but Fever is still a great standalone single, and it deserves praise for its groovy bass line and catchy as hell chorus. This one is impossible not to sing along with. And the track Gotta Get Away, this one feels like a throwback Black Keys song, perfect for road trips. It's got cowbells, and it's a perfect way to foreshadow the back to basics songwriting that we would get on Let's Rock. Now sadly, this album Turn Blue just loses my interest with the thinly and cheaply produced songs In Our Prime and It's Up to You Now. Although those 2 songs take a while to get going with the fiery sections of Adrenaline, they remain some of the weaker Danger Mouse era Black Keys songs to date. This album, moreover, just feels a bit too spotty for its highlights. There are a lot of great moments on here, it's just that you have to sift through some of the filler, unfortunately. Now moving on to album number 5 in my ranking position, we have Attack and Release. This is the 5th album from the Black Keys. This was released back in 2008. And this one I feel like is a revitalized album. Something that we're trying new things. First time that the Black Keys are really stepping out of their comfort zone. This is the first time that they worked with Danger Mouse, aka Brian Burton. He's the producer on here, and he essentially breathed new life into the Black Keys songwriting process. It's not that Dan and Pat weren't great songwriters before this album. I just feel like Danger Mouse seemed to put the pep in their step and made them a bit more confident when it came to their playing, and also obviously backing it with professional level production quality. Take the track I Got Mine, for example. This one has some electronic elements being weaved through it, and I feel like it just adds nicely to the jam session duo performance. There's even a bit of a bluegrass tinge to the opening cut, All You Ever Wanted. Strange Times hits with frantic and unearthly kind of energy, which wouldn't be able to hit that peak without Danger Mouse's production, I feel. Other tracks like Same Old Thing, we throw in some woodwinds. We have So He Won't Break. This song has a lot of bell instrumentation, which is notable for the Black Keys because they went on to use more xylophone with later projects on Turn Blue. And I can't forget the synth tone that is on Remember When. We also get some electronic drum beats on there for the first time. But yeah, overall I think this is a good album for the Black Keys. I'm feeling a B for my ranking. Now on to number 4, we have the latest project from the Black Keys, Let's Rock. This is the 9th studio album. It's a notable return for the back to basics songwriting, and it's the first album to be devoid of Danger Mouse and be largely self-produced since Magic Potion back in 2006. This is definitely an homage to the electric guitar, something that hasn't been done very well in recent years. From the dire and intensely titled Go to the instant classic opener Shine a Little Light, this album slams its foot on the gas pedal and rarely lets off during its 38-minute runtime. It's great music for car rides off into the countryside. It's an album that is perfect if you miss 70s radio airplay. And yeah, it's youthful and vibrant despite it not really having much flashy appeal to it. I'm feeling a B+ on this. Now on to my 3rd ranked album. Here we have Rubber Factory. This is the 3rd album from the Black Keys. It dropped back in 2004. This one I feel like is a diverse project from the songwriting perspective. It's one that certainly progresses out of the Jimi Hendrix vocal style and shows a bit more of the band's personal side with the occasional ballad or two. And of course, this is all with better production and tightly knit chemistry between Dan and Pat. This is their 3rd album. They should have a bit more chemistry together at this point. Now, if you're new to the Black Keys, this is the album that I would recommend for first-time listeners. Hands down, I would say this is the best of their early albums, their pre-Danger Mouse albums. There are tracks on here I love, like 10 AM Automatic. This one has more crooning, less fuzz on the voice from Dan. He shows off a bit more of his natural timbre. Shows off some more vibrato, less derivative kind of sound. There's a catchy guitar riff on here. There's no questioning why it's the single, and the guitar solo cuts through crisply without actually drowning everything else out, which I think previous songs from the Black Keys in their discography had slight issues with. Other tracks like All Hands Against His Own, this one feels like one of the more ambitious Black Keys songs from back in the day. There's some congas, there's some falsetto singing, and we get that slight little glimpse into the future with a roaring guitar solo which points towards Weight of Love on Turn Blue. Overall, with Rubber Factory, I think this is the album that solidifies the Black Keys with their recipe or formula. They have these loud and soft dynamics that juxtapose each other. Dan's fuzzed and ringing guitar has finally found its match with Pat's incredible drumming. And for that, I'm feeling an A-. I think this is the first great record in the Black Keys' discography. Now at number 2, we probably have the most well-known Black Keys record, El Camino. This came out in 2011, and this is what I would call the Give Me All the Hits record. No doubt it won the Best Rock Album back in 2013 at the Grammys, which was one of the last years I really cared about who won a Grammy. The track Lonely Boy, the one that opens up this album, won the Best Rock Song, Best Rock Performance. It is one of their best songs, period. Tracks 1 through 4 on this album hit hard. They need to be played super loud to get their full effect, I feel. Dead and Gone will remain one of the underdogs of their catalog. Little Black Submarines has got to be the Black Keys' most dynamic performance from front to back. We get a bluesy toe-tapping kind of intro, and then we move into the most visceral and violent exhibitions of rock extravagance. Moving on from there, the closing songs Nova Baby and Mind Eraser grab with urgent and biting charm and presence. The simple strums and pulsating bass on Sister make for an anthemic and enjoyable chorus. In fact, all of the choruses on this album are pure ear candy. They are sugary at times, kind of just giving you all the good stuff right in front of your face, and like that's what makes it the perfection that it kind of is. Now honestly, it is difficult to choose between El Camino and Brothers for the top 2 spots in the discography of the Black Keys. I think El Camino is an amazing record and you can't go wrong with it as like road trip music. I just think as a cohesive project, El Camino falls a bit short because it's an album that is built upon its peppy and punchy formula. It's a damn good formula at that. El Camino deserves an A from me for its ranking for sure. I will respect it for what it is, but I just gotta give Brothers number 1, and here we go. Number 1, Brothers. This is the 6th studio album from the Black Keys, which was released in 2010. Their masterpiece, in my eyes. Really not much of a competition for El Camino in the way that its production, its songwriting, its pacing, its heartfelt and sincere personalities kind of shine through. Everlasting Light is the track that kicks off this album with its fuzzy tones of guitar. It cuts through like a knife. Dan's best falsettos to date. He finally builds upon the ambition and potential that he displayed on Rubber Factory and rolls with a song that's sung with distinct distinct personality. He's also oozing with charisma, which is something that he would go on to replicate on The Only One, which is another crooner on this magnificent album. Next Girl is a classic Black Keys song which has been heard time and time again, especially with the song Countdown from their debut, but interestingly enough, this time round, I think that Dan cries out with unmatched gut and power, making it not only a superior track to Countdown, but one of the best moving on from a breakup songs, period. Tighten Up is the single that broke them into the mainstream, allowing the Black Keys to strut their stuff with confidence. The track is the best way to see how the band has achieved success on the charts and on the radio. Howling for You is the song that started it all for me. Personally, this is the first song I heard from the Black Keys from EA's NHL 11. This is also the Black Keys' second single to go platinum behind Tighten Up. 10 Cent Pistol, this one has got to be the most underrated Black Keys song in their discography. This track is one that sees them open up and just blossom into this kind of band that they showed promise on with Rubber Factory. They finally answered the call and set in motion a dynamic and burly performance, all brought home by spirited and spunky drumming by Patrick Carney. And flawlessly on 10 Cent Pistol, I feel like they executed this signature brand of loud, soft dynamics. And of course, closing out this record, we can't forget about These Days, the best closing track, the most personal of the Black Keys albums in my opinion. It is so heartbreaking to see that Dan is considering selling his soul to the devil just to regain any little bit of happiness he can get in his life. And of course, relatively speaking with all the other albums, I think this is a phenomenal record. I'm going to give it an A+. And there you have it, 9 albums later, we have discussed all of the Black Keys' discography, at least up until 2019. That's the first episode of Graded. Again, sound off down below in the comments, let me know what you think of this series. Leave a like if you do like, subscribe if you're new in town. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a rockin' day.